Imagine the scene on March 23, 1945. World War II is in its final, ferocious chapter, and the Allies stand on the brink of total victory. High above the scarred landscapes of Germany, Winston Churchill's command aircraft descends toward a fateful landing. The British Prime Minister, cigar clenched in his teeth, anticipates a moment of pure triumph, witnessing Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery launch Operation Plunder, the meticulously planned assault across the Rhine River. This operation is no ordinary military maneuver. It's envisioned as a grand spectacle of British precision, with thousands of artillery pieces thundering in unison, paratroopers raining from the skies, and thick smoke screens shrouding the advance. Churchill has orchestrated media coverage, drafted celebratory communiques, and positioned this as the pinnacle of Allied success, showcasing British professionalism against the backdrop of American improvisation. Then, the radio crackles with news that changes everything. For stark words, Patton crossed last night. The air in the cabin grows heavy. Not during Montgomery's orchestrated barrage. Not with the full weight of Allied coordination. No, General George S. Patton, the unrelenting American commander, has already thrust his Third Army across Hitler's vaunted last natural barrier, using little more than assault boats, night cover, and unbreakable resolve. What was meant to be Britain's shining hour has been eclipsed in the shadows of the previous evening, laying bare the tensions of pride, rivalry, and the raw pursuit of victory in a coalition forged under fire. To fully appreciate the earthquake this triggered, consider the Rhine's mythic status. This mighty river, snaking more than 700 miles with treacherous currents and steep, defended banks, had repelled invaders since Roman times. By spring 1945, it represented the final gateway to the Reich's core, the Ruhr Valley's factories and the road straight to Berlin. Crossing it wasn't just tactical, it was symbolic, a chance for lasting glory in the war's closing narrative. Enter the central figures in this drama of egos and empires. Bernard Montgomery, Monty to his men, was the personification of British military tradition, deliberate, exhaustive in preparation, always prioritizing overwhelming superiority to preserve lives. From triumphs in North Africa to the beaches of Normandy, he was Churchill's favored son, a commander who turned caution into an art form. Operation Plunder embodied this philosophy perfectly. Over 2 intense months, Monty marshaled an astonishing force, 1.2 million troops, 25,000 vehicles, over 3,500 guns, and the war's largest airborne assault since D-Day. Smoke would blind the enemy, amphibious vehicles would ferry commandos ashore, and everything was synchronized to perfection. In January, Churchill had personally promised him this northern push would headline the Allied victory, proving British method over American flair. Press packs were ready, victory statements polished. It promised redemption for a nation that had stood alone against the Blitz and borne the war's earliest burdens. Opposite him loomed George S. Patton, the swaggering American genius of war, ivory-handled pistols at his hips, voice laced with fire and profanity, a leader who inspired terror in enemies and awe in his troops. Patton had stormed across France post-Normandy and, in a legendary feat, pivoted his entire army in blizzard conditions to relieve Bastogne during the Bulge in just 72 hours. He lived for speed and aggression. A good plan violently executed today is better than a perfect plan next week. Within the Allied hierarchy, under Supreme Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower, who juggled national sensitivities like a diplomat, Montgomery's sector was the primary thrust.
Patton was to support from the south, not preempt.
But restraint chafed Patton. As Red Army hordes surged from the east, swallowing land that would define the post-war world, every hesitation seemed a concession to Stalin. Patton's diary burned with frustration over Montgomery's tempo, fueled by a deep personal rivalry that echoed through command tents. Allied staff whispered of the tortoise versus the hare, and on March 22nd, the hare surged ahead. Late that night, from Luxembourg, Patton rang Eisenhower, calm, almost offhand. "Ike, we've crossed at Oppenheim. Boats, few casualties. Figured you'd want the heads up." Eisenhower, sensing catastrophe, pressed for coordination with Montgomery. Patton's retort was pure defiance. He hadn't wished to disrupt Monty's grand performance. But disrupt it he did. By morning, Montgomery's command post simmered with outrage. Witnesses described Monty turning steely, not raging. Patton had undermined the entire strategy for ego's sake. He fired off an urgent message to Churchill demanding Patton's immediate removal for gross insubordination. In Monty's view, unity demanded discipline above all. Churchill absorbed the news mid-flight, reading the dispatch multiple times as Germany unfolded below in ruins. Montgomery represented British resilience. Patton's success was irrefutable. His 5th Division had slipped across undetected, casualties negligible, bridgehead expanding by dawn with pontoons rising fast. Pure boldness, no elaborate prelude. The calculus tormented Churchill. Backing Montgomery meant seeking an American hero's dismissal for winning prematurely, a non-starter across the Atlantic. Siding against him risked humiliating British arms when Americans now dominated manpower, losses, and logistics. The aircraft landed. Montgomery awaited, posture rigid. Pulling him aside, Churchill cut to the heart. Had Patton requested permission, would it have been granted? Montgomery's instant reply, no. It diluted the main effort. Churchill probed deeper. Was this truly strategy or wounded pride? The conversation stripped away pretenses. Churchill had long shielded Montgomery's style, methodical builds saving thousands. Yet Patton's exploits compelled reflection. Delays gifted ground to Soviets racing westward. Speed was compressing the war, bringing soldiers home alive. Montgomery pleaded for accountability. Churchill conceded the breach, but highlighted the absurdity of punishing victory. Americans held the reins now. Troops, supplies, momentum. Patton had exposed a shift Britain could no longer ignore. As Plunder erupted, guns blazing, drops commencing, the drama felt secondary. Churchill offered solace. Montgomery's legacy endured from past glories. But an American had crossed first, not through superiority, but willingness to gamble on velocity. Returning aloft, Churchill penned to Eisenhower. No support for relief. Success advanced the cause. A private addendum. Keep Patton advancing. We need that momentum. Later, over whiskey with his doctor, Churchill confessed exhaustion. Choosing outcomes over prestige, knowing resentments would linger. No regrets. Speed defeated foes and spared lives. For American viewers, this stirs the soul. Those GIs, ordinary heroes from heartland towns and bustling cities, channeled ingenuity and grit. Patton's audacity shortened suffering, hastened homecomings, embodied the daring that turned the tide. Operation Plunder rolled forward relentlessly. On March 24th, Varsity unleashed thousands of paratroopers in the war's biggest single-day airborne effort, seizing bridges and strongpoints amid intense fire. Montgomery's forces consolidated bridgeheads with engineering marvels, pontoons and baileys spanning the waters swiftly. It captured hordes of prisoners and cracked northern defenses wide open, a flawless execution of planned power. Yet headlines fixated on Patton. His opportunistic strikes stole the narrative, even prompting awkward, premature broadcasts of prepared praises. Relations frayed. Montgomery's bond with Churchill chilled to formality. British commanders protested unchecked boldness, undermining order. Churchill rebuffed firmly. Escalation would only diminish influence when American strength prevailed. Patton exploited relentlessly, widening his foothold and, in iconic defiance, marking the Rhine personally. His diary gloated at proving American ways superior. The Third Army lunged eastward, shattering remnants and accelerating collapse. Combined with earlier surprises like Remagen's captured bridge, these crossings obliterated the Rhine barrier. Allies poured into Germany's interior, encircling the Ruhr, bagging hundreds of thousands. Victory in Europe arrived May 8th, arguably sooner, lives spared by unrelenting pace. Churchill later mused in memoirs on the instructive contrast, Plunder's brilliance in orchestration versus Patton's resource-light improvisation achieving parallel ends. Modern war, he concluded, favored velocity. This moment illuminated coalition realities, nations allied yet competing, power flowing to those with greatest resources. Britain, exhausted from solitary defiance, ceded primacy to America's vast output and manpower. Shared burdens won the war, but shifting dynamics foreshadowed the post-war order. For Americans today, Patton evokes profound pride. Ancestors who crossed seas, innovated under fire, hastened peace. Audacity not only toppled tyranny, but brought fathers, brothers, sons home intact. As bridges spanned the Rhine and armies advanced, dreams turned to reunions, parades, a world rebuilt. In stealing thunder across that river, history pivoted, from measured imperial tradition to a bolder era's relentless drive.